Why are we doing such a bad job raising our young men? What is it that's distorting the healthy development of masculinity? Maybe you're a dad like me and you're struggling with the ever-present question, how do I raise my sons? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to answer that very question with one of the most dominant factors of fatherlessness. What impact is this having on our young men, and what can we do about it to make it better so that we do develop healthy masculinity? Hey guys, if we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Andrew, and for the last 28 years, I've had the pleasure of helping men and families with their relationships, with marriage counseling, with problem solving, with crisis counseling, you name it. I've been a coach and a psychologist for men for a long, long time. I've got some help for you, and that's what we're going to do in today's episode. Let's go there now. Guys, what is distorting the healthy development of masculinity in young men? This is a question that we've got to take the time to answer, because most people who are paying attention can see that we are not doing a good enough job in developing healthy masculinity in our young men and in our teens. Now, getting back to the definition that we always use on this channel, what do we mean when we say healthy masculinity? We're talking about old school original masculinity, which is about protection, provision, empowerment of others. Nothing wrong with those things. All good things, but we're not seeing it enough. And so because of that, we've got the emergence of this concept of toxic masculinity. We've got to do more to rewrite that narrative. Let me throw a few statistics at you that's really important, shows and proves that we're not doing a good enough job with this. Here they are. 19 males go to prison for every one female. 98% of all sexual assaults are committed by males. 90% of robberies are committed by males. 92% of abductions are committed by males. 87% of homicides are committed by males. And in Australia today, approximately 9 people will die by suicide. 7 of those people will be men, and 1 woman in Australia is killed nearly every week as a result of family violence. Clearly, we are not doing the kind of job we want to do, the men and the women, the boys and the girls. We're not doing a good enough job on developing healthy masculinity in our young men. I want to talk to you about why. There's many factors. The main factor we're going to talk about in today's episode is the factor of fatherlessness. Fatherlessness is at an all-time sky-high epidemic rate of impact in our world. We are seeing broken families, we are seeing solo parent homes, and then all of the domino effect thereafter of what happens when there's not a healthy male role model in the family home for all of our children, but especially for our young men. And we've got to talk about the nature of family breakup and what goes on in life for people when that situation occurs, because not every solo parent home, especially the solo mums who are heroes without a shadow of a doubt, not all young men have to have a biological male present in their home to succeed in life. But the statistics do show it's an alarming and significant advantage. The point I'm making is, even when the biological father figure is not present, some young men, and it is a minority, but some young men are still fortunate enough to have good male role models in their school life, their sporting life, youth and community groups, church groups, that can fill some of that void and still help those young men to get on the right track, despite the fact that they will still have a journey to travel regarding their own fatherlessness in their heart. However, the other side of the coin is just as alarming. I want to give you some statistics about fatherlessness in our young men. And this is a global statistic. When it comes to fatherlessness and the impact on young men and the development of healthy masculinity, 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 5 times the average. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, which is 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behaviour disorders come from fatherless homes. 20 times the average. Let me throw 2 more stats at you. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 14 times the average, and one more, 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, which is 9 times the average. Statistically, anecdotally, observationally, we can see two things are true and cannot be argued with. Number one, we are not doing a good enough job in developing healthy masculinity in our young men. Number two, a dominant factor that's causing that pathway to go wrong for our young men is fatherlessness. Why is fatherlessness such an issue for our young men? Well, I'm going to give you a few thoughts to help us understand this in a more practical way. You see, when a father who's not perfect, but he is a good father, in other words, he's available, he's reasonably emotionally whole himself, he's got the right focus on the right definition of masculinity, which is to protect, provide, empower, and he's got the right position regarding what it means to be a good dad, and that is to be there to help his children succeed. When that is the case, a good father will send the message to a young man to say, you have got what it takes to overcome your problems. You have what it takes to beat your challenges. But what we're seeing in increasing numbers, sadly, is when fatherlessness is a factor, we have young men who are growing up without hearing that voice and that word and that message from a father. So it creates a deep-seated insecurity about their capabilities, and it creates a huge void in their personal identity, so they grow up not really knowing who they are and not really sure about whether they've got what it takes, which opens their heart and their mind to a whole host of problems in their peer group selection, in their recreational activities, in their attitude towards substance abuse and addictions. It opens up a whole negative treasure trove of what can go on for a young man when he doesn't hear that message. Here's another thought. When we have a present and available father for our young men, our boys, our teenagers, and even young adults, one of the things that we see happening is the development of good character. In other words, the traits and the value system that help them to become contributors, help them to become positive role models for other people in their life, help them to do well in their career pathway, in their friendships, in their future relationships towards marriage and family leadership. It helps the development of character to have the guiding hand, the guiding voice of a father for our young men as they navigate the difficult and complex journey of masculinity. Here's another thought. Very, very simple, and it's meant to be this plain. A good father, an available father, teaches a son, teaches a young man how to be a good man. Really, when it comes down to it, we're talking about a discipleship approach, making a boy into a man intentionally. You know, I've got a 10-year-old son, and recently I had a gathering of some of my friends at my house, and some of my long-term friends, all males, came over to hang out with me and spend a bit of time, and one or two of those friends my son didn't know very well. But when they came into the house, because I had coached my son on this factor before, I've always told him that when you meet somebody new, reach out your hand, shake their hand, look them in the eye confidently and introduce yourself. Tell them your name, ask them their name, and that's how you meet somebody. And so when these friends of mine came to my house recently, my young 10-year-old son was able to put his hand out as a young boy to these grown men, shake their hand, look them in the eye, because I'm training him in all manner of detail about what it takes to be a good man, a strong man, a man of character. And what we're seeing in our young men around the world today, masculinity is not being developed. In fact, it's getting distorted, and fatherlessness, the absence of a coach and a guide to show them how to be a man, is a huge, huge factor. Really, what we're talking about here is role modeling. That young men learn through what they observe and what they see. If they haven't got a good male role model within visibility and within reach, they're not going to have a pathway to follow, and they're going to get into all kinds of wrong decision making and situations. Here's another factor that's so important as it pertains to fatherlessness. A good, available father, a good man who is a protector, a provider, and an empowerer will help a young man to learn how to treat a woman. In another episode in this series, we're going to talk about the factor of pornography and how pornography has taught young men to objectify women, therefore obliterating their capacity to learn how to treat them properly. Well, a good man, a good father, an available father who is intentionally coaching and raising his sons, his young men, will prototype and talk about what it means when it comes to treating a woman properly, how to respect her, how to look after her, how to empower her. Again, this was a recent conversation in my home with my own son. We recently sat down and began conversations around, the age-old topic of the birds and the bees. Where do babies come from? And we started to have that conversation. He and I, just the two of us, father and son. I've lamented in my own life how my own father didn't have those conversations with me. And so I made a decision very early on in my own parenting that I wanted to be the circuit breaker in my family line. Not out of spite towards my now deceased father or out of some kind of I'll show you sort of attitude, but out of a love and a care for my own children. I didn't want them to miss out on some of the things that I missed out on just because I missed out. I didn't want to repay them according to my loss. And so we sat down recently and we started to talk about all these important things to do with sexuality and how a baby's made and the beginning points for him of what relationships between a man and a woman are about and should be about. And I'm striving every day to try and prototype those things to him in our home. You see, the thing is, if he doesn't get it prototyped to him, he won't understand what it means how to be a man or how to treat a woman or any of these other things. And the main reason, and this is going to be the crescendo of our episode today, the main reason why my son won't know how to be a man, how to grow his character, how to treat a woman, how to do all these things unless I show him is because the stark truth and reality is this: masculinity is bestowed by masculinity. That is the unarguable truth. Now, not everybody loves that reality. I'm okay with the fact that some people won't love it, but just because they don't love it does not mean for a moment that I'm backing away from my deep, deep conviction that it's still true. The evidence there is there statistically, it's there anecdotally, it's there observationally for all of us to see that masculinity, in its healthy definition, is bestowed by healthy masculinity. So for us, what's the answer to this challenge and this problem we're seeing with distorted development of masculinity? We need more grown men to commit to the task of raising their own biological sons and the sons that are within their reach through relationship, raising them with great role modeling, great conversation, great encouragement to become the men that they were destined to be. This is the only way we're going to turn it around. Governments will not solve this problem. Even well-intentioned community agencies cannot solve this problem on their own. This one starts in the home. It starts one-on-one. It starts with every single man, just like you watching this episode, who makes the decision, I'm going to do my part in raising those who are within my responsibility with the correct understanding of what healthy masculinity is all about. I'd love to see you in another episode real soon on this subject matter as we unpack it further.